Hello, Bible readers. It is Tuesday, March 2nd. We're reading from 2 Kings, chapters 1 through 4, and then 1 Corinthians, getting into chapter 14 and even into 15. 2 Kings here. Let's start there. Elijah, a hairy man with a leather belt around his waist, is how he's described. Sound familiar? You know, it does sound, for Christians who know the John the Baptist character from the Gospels, that's part of why John the Baptist is described in the way that he's described, is to kind of remind you, kind of jog your memory with the actions of Elijah, with the power of this prophet Elijah. Ahaziah and Elijah, they don't see eye to eye whatsoever, because you've got Ahaziah seeking out answers and guidance from who he thinks the Lord of life is, Baal-zebub. Chapter 2 is about the prophetic succession from Elijah to Elisha. And there's two stories that we read today that are really important to know about each, one story each. First, Elijah ascends. This is a touchstone story, not just about Elijah, but in the whole Old Testament. Only Enoch in Genesis chapter 5, verse 24, is taken by God and doesn't die. We put special emphasis on the ascension because it is so strange for this to happen for Elijah. But the point is not to dwell on, wow, but the point is that even though Elijah is taken up in this very unusual, strange way, even then there is another ready to serve the people with the word of the Lord. The Lord provides, even in advance of this really strange ascension moment. The people are not left without a prophet, put it that way. Elisha has a story here too that's quite famous. He puts this curse on youngsters. Troubling. Ethics, though, is not the issue that the writer's trying to take on. His point, it's entirely up to God who gets blessed and who gets cursed. This is not a great way to illustrate that point. It's awful, but that is the point, that God gets to do what God gets to do. Chapter 3, you've got Jehoram and Moab. God bails out a sinner king, like Jehoram, as he tries to fight against Moab. It shows that God's willing to respond even to him, Jehoram, because Jehoram asks. Jehoram comes to God, and God will respond even to him. Chapter 4, Elisha's ministry of life, including a resurrection. He feeds many with a little. These stories that we see about Elijah and Elisha, they fuel the kinds of expectations and images that people have for what a Messiah is. They shape the definition of a prophet. So that's important, I think, to take from these readings today, that when Jesus encounters certain perceptions, this is where those perceptions come from. 1 Corinthians, don't be children in your thinking, be infants in evil. I love that line. Build up one another and the church, not yourself. That's what Paul is trying to get across in this letter. He takes on the idea that one gift, the gift of tongues, is greater than all the rest. He sees this dwelling on one gift, especially this one in particular, as creating chaos, division, and it just leads to chaotic worship, just disheveled worship. And so he gets after them for that. Then we get to 14, verse 34, that women should be silent. My commentary, because this is obviously a very problematic verse, my commentary thinks this is a later addition to Paul's letters, so that 1 Corinthians would back up practices regarding women in the church at the time. Now, how would you like that, by the way, if you're Paul and your legacy is changed by this verse. Ephesians and Colossians will do this too. They'll write in Paul's name, but include stuff that is obviously not very Pauline. Different churches, different people choose to do different things with chapter 14, verse 34. Obviously, as I'm at a church that called a woman to be a pastor with as much authority as anybody else in the church, and she gets to speak all the time, I'm not down with this verse. So this is one of those scripture interpret scripture moments as well. Finally, chapter 15, 1 to 11, a discourse begins on resurrection. This is a basic confession, like our foundation for how we worship and what we're worshiping for. This is where you can find it. I am one with my God. My God is with us, all of us, at all times and in all places.